Picture this. It's March 2024. Somewhere beneath the icy swells of the North Atlantic, the British nuclear submarine HMS Vengeance completes an unthinkable 201 consecutive days submerged. That's nearly 7 months without sunlight, without fresh air, and without the simple grounding presence of solid earth. Inside this sealed steel world, 130 sailors carry out their duties with unwavering discipline, enduring one of the most extreme and invisible environments on the planet. There are no windows on a nuclear submarine, no sense of day or night, just fluorescent lights, humming machinery, and the steady rhythm of life conducted under intense psychological and physical strain. There are no weekends, no breaks to step outside, and no instant communication with loved ones. Time becomes fluid. The world above continues on, unaware of the complex, silent dance unfolding hundreds of feet below the surface. But how do these men and women do it? How do they sleep in spaces smaller than a hallway closet? How do they eat full meals months into a deployment when there's no grocery store in sight? How do they breathe air and drink water in a world surrounded entirely by salt and pressure? This isn't just a story about machines or missions. It's a story of remarkable human resilience and the quiet courage required to live where no one can see you. A place where engineers double as cooks, where every sailor must know how to fight fires or fix broken systems, and where the stakes are nothing less than life or death. It's a story of how brotherhood, ritual, and structure keep people grounded when gravity itself seems uncertain. We'll explore how submarines turn seawater into breathable air, how food is rationed and served under intense logistical pressure, and how mental health is safeguarded through shared traditions and strict discipline. We'll even examine the deeply symbolic and arduous rite of passage that turns a sailor into a true submariner, earning the coveted Silver Dolphin's pin. This is submarine life, where the artificial becomes real, where normal comforts disappear, and where silence isn't just protocol, it's survival. Sleeping on a submarine isn't about comfort, it's about endurance. The bunks are small, measuring just 74 inches long and 25 inches wide, with only 18 inches of vertical space. Think about crawling into a large locker with barely enough room to roll over. This confined rectangle, stacked 3 high in tight corridors, becomes a sailor's only personal sanctuary for months. But not everyone gets their own bunk. Submarines like the USS Missouri operate on a system known as hot bunking or hot racking, where multiple sailors share the same bed in shifts. As one sailor finishes watch and prepares to sleep, another is just waking up, leaving behind a bed still warm with body heat. Hygiene is critical, and so are timing and respect. No one wants to climb into a damp bunk. Until recently, submarines operated on an 18-hour day split into 3 6-hour shifts. This disrupted circadian rhythms and led to chronic fatigue. Recognizing the toll, the Navy transitioned to a more natural 24-hour cycle with 8-hour shifts. The results have been transformative: better sleep, improved alertness, and higher crew morale. Still, sleep remains a challenge. Sailors sleep next to machinery that never stops, beneath metal pipes that groan with pressure, and in a hallway that's always active. But over time, these sounds become comforting, a reminder that systems are working. Some veterans even report they sleep better on submarines than on land, rocked by the vessel's subtle motion and lulled by its mechanical symphony. Each bunk has a curtain for privacy and a briefcase-sized locker for all personal belongings. Within that small space, sailors tape up photos of family, stack letters from home, and create a tiny oasis of identity. These microcosms of selfhood are essential for preserving morale in an environment that offers little room for individuality. Sleeping underwater becomes not just a matter of rest, but of adaptation. It means learning to sleep in a space that hums and vibrates. It means trusting your crewmates and the machines around you to protect your life while you're most vulnerable. And it means accepting, even finding comfort in, the surreal normalcy of sleeping hundreds of feet below the surface. Feeding 130 people underwater for 3 months straight without a single resupply is one of the greatest logistical achievements in the modern military. Before the submarine even leaves port, it is packed with approximately 15,000 pounds of food, enough to sustain the entire crew through every meal, every shift, and every morale slump. for up to 90 days or more. It's the weight of 3 full-size pickup trucks, crammed into every available space inside a steel tube, barely wider than a subway car. There's no proper pantry on a submarine. Food gets stored in every imaginable place. For the first few weeks of a deployment, sailors literally walk on boxes of canned goods. Shower stalls become makeshift pantries. Sleeping quarters double as temporary food storage. On the USS Missouri, one crew recalled sleeping on stacks of food until they ate their way back down to bare metal flooring. Fresh food is a luxury that fades fast. Perishables like fruits, vegetables, milk, and bread typically last about 2 weeks, 3 if conditions are ideal. After that, it's down to frozen meats, powdered eggs, dehydrated vegetables, and shelf-stable everything. But even in these austere conditions, submarine cooks, some of the most highly respected in the Navy, manage to create meals that nourish both body and spirit. They operate in galleys smaller than many home kitchens. No open flames are allowed for safety. Everything is cooked using convection ovens, induction cooktops, and pressure-controlled fryers. Despite these limits, the culinary teams prepare 4 full meals a day: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and midnight rations. These meals aren't snacks, they're complete plates of protein, carbs, and vegetables designed to power sailors through endless watch shifts and maintenance cycles. Even more impressive, the schedule is carefully rotated. Without daylight to guide their appetite, shift workers might eat dinner at what would normally be 7 a.m. To keep things balanced, the Navy ensures that each meal type, breakfast, dinner, etc., is offered at varying times throughout the week, so one watch section isn't stuck eating scrambled eggs every midnight. And the coffee? It's sacred. Submarines carry over 1,000 pounds of it. Coffee is more than a caffeine fix. It's ritual, conversation, and focus. It flows constantly in the galley, sustaining the alertness and camaraderie of the entire crew. By the end of a long deployment, supplies grow thin. One submarine reported finishing their patrol with only a single canned ham, some white cake mix, and dehydrated peas. But here's the astounding part: they timed it perfectly. Nearly every calorie was accounted for and consumed. That level of precision and planning underscores what submarine life is all about: efficiency, adaptability, and the relentless will to endure. At first glance, a submarine might seem like the worst possible place to sustain human life. Sealed off, hundreds of feet underwater, surrounded by salt water and pressurized darkness. Yet, incredibly, submarines create everything needed to survive, starting with the most essential element: air and water. Modern nuclear submarines don't carry giant tanks of oxygen. They manufacture it on board, using a process called electrolysis. This involves extracting seawater, running it through powerful electrical currents, and splitting the water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen is safely released into the ocean. The oxygen is filtered, stored, and circulated through the ship's ventilation system. The scale of this operation is staggering. One adult requires roughly 600 liters of oxygen per day. Multiply that by 130 people, and the sub must produce over 78,000 liters every single day, without fail. And it does. As long as the submarine has access to seawater and electrical power, and with a nuclear reactor, power is virtually limitless, it can create breathable air indefinitely. Water, too, is generated on board. Submarines use advanced distillation systems to boil seawater and condense the steam into pure, drinkable water. These systems can produce between 10,000 and 40,000 gallons of fresh water per day. That's more than enough for drinking, cooking, bathing, and even for cooling sensitive onboard electronics. But creating air and water is only half the battle. The other half is managing the byproducts of human life, especially carbon dioxide. As submariners breathe, CO2 levels inside the vessel rise quickly. Too much CO2 leads to headaches, confusion, unconsciousness, and ultimately death. To prevent this, submarines use chemical scrubbers, systems filled with compounds like soda lime that trap carbon dioxide molecules and neutralize them. These scrubbers run continuously, cycling the internal atmosphere to maintain balance. Advanced sensors constantly monitor oxygen, CO2, hydrogen, carbon monoxide, and even trace chemicals. If anything spikes out of range, alarms go off and corrective protocols begin immediately. Your goal should be there's no room for error. A fault in the air system isn't an inconvenience, it's a life or death emergency. That's why these systems are built with redundancy and backed by rigorous training. Crews drill frequently on life support failure scenarios. Every sailor is trained to locate and operate emergency breathing apparatus in total darkness, blindfolded if necessary. It's often said that submarines are like underwater space stations. That's not an exaggeration. They must function entirely independently, creating and recycling the very essentials of life from the ocean that surrounds them. Submariners live inside a controlled atmosphere of their own making, breathing air produced from water, drinking water extracted from the sea, and trusting that invisible systems keep it all in balance. And somehow, in this engineered bubble beneath the waves, life goes on, quietly, efficiently, and without pause. Waste management, the unspoken challenge. In the silent, pressurized world of a submarine, every system must function with flawless precision. Not just propulsion, navigation, or weaponry, but the most basic and least glamorous of them all, waste management. When 130 people are sealed inside a steel tube for months at a time, waste disposal becomes not just an issue of hygiene, it's an issue of health, morale, and survival. A single failure in the sewer system could flood compartments with human waste, contaminate the carefully regulated atmosphere, or even compromise the sub's stealth by forcing an emergency surfacing. To avoid that, submarines rely on vacuum-operated toilet systems, similar in principle to those on commercial airplanes, but significantly more complex and robust. Each toilet uses suction to transport waste into sanitary tanks, which can hold up to 1,500 gallons before requiring emptying. These tanks are sealed, pressurized, and equipped with multiple fail-safes. Even when a tank is being flushed or serviced, the rest of the system remains operational. But here's the catch. You can't just dump waste whenever you want. International law and operational security dictate that discharge only happens in deep water, far from any coastline, typically over 3 nautical miles out, and only when the vessel is at the right depth and speed. This means careful planning and strict adherence to disposal windows. Solid waste, trash, food wrappers, packaging is equally managed with military precision. Submarines don't carry garbage bins like you'd find in a home or office. Instead, dry waste is compacted into dense, perforated steel cans designed to sink to the ocean floor. These are ejected through a specialized trash disposal unit, a kind of miniature torpedo tube for refuse. Metal weights are added to ensure every can quietly disappears into the abyss, never to resurface or betray the sub's location. What's remarkable is how little is wasted. Cardboard is stripped from all supplies before deployment to save space and eliminate flammable or bulky packaging. Every item brought aboard has already passed 3 tests. Can it be eaten? Can it be compacted? Can it be safely ejected? Even the act of using the toilet is governed by unspoken etiquette and discipline. Sailors are trained on how to operate the vacuum heads properly. A mistake, like flushing at the wrong moment, can cause a backup, or worse, a shutdown. On older subs, misuse sometimes led to the system being out of service for hours, creating a chain reaction of inconvenience and frustration. It might sound humorous on the surface, but beneath the waves, the stakes are high. Waste management isn't a side note. It's a core function of life support. It's monitored, maintained, and drilled with the same seriousness as reactor safety. In a place where space is scarce and privacy is nearly non-existent, even the most human of needs becomes a shared responsibility. And for the submariners who live it, maintaining dignity in those daily routines, however small, is part of the quiet professionalism that defines life beneath the sea. If technology makes survival underwater possible, it's something far more human that makes it bearable: brotherhood. No matter how advanced the reactor, how efficient the oxygen scrubbers, or how precisely the meals are portioned, it is the unspoken code among submariners that holds the crew together. Life aboard a submarine is a study in extreme proximity. There's no privacy, no personal space. Every action, every sound, every emotion is shared, felt, or overheard. You sleep inches away from another sailor, eat every meal shoulder to shoulder, and navigate hallways where 2 people can't pass without turning sideways. Under such conditions, even small conflicts can quickly spiral, unless there's discipline, respect, and something deeper: trust. That's why submariners adopt strict behavioral norms, chief among them, no politics. Discussions that might divide or escalate are simply avoided. The mission comes first. Backgrounds, ideologies, and opinions are set aside in favor of shared goals and mutual survival. On a boat where silence is tactical and harmony is essential, these boundaries aren't restrictions, they're lifeline. Noise discipline is another sacred rule. At any given moment, a third of the crew is sleeping. That means no slammed doors, no loud laughter in berthing areas, no boots clomping down metal gangways. Even conversations are softened by muscle memory. Voices drop naturally, footsteps grow quieter, and movements become efficient and deliberate. Everyone learns to live like a ghost for the sake of those who need rest. Physical awareness also becomes second nature. Sailors learn to bend, twist, and duck with practice ease, like dancers choreographing movement through narrow passageways. They develop an intuitive sense of space, where their elbows are, where someone's coming around a corner, where to step aside without a word. In this environment, collisions aren't just awkward, they're disruptive. Shower etiquette is another form of silent cooperation. Even though the sub can make fresh water, conservation is still key. A 5-minute shower is considered long. Most use a Navy shower routine. Water on, rinse, water off, lather, water back on, rinse again. Efficiency is a form of courtesy, so is leaving a clean head for the next guy. These small habits stack up, preserving morale day after day. But what truly binds the crew isn't rules, it's sacrifice. Everyone on board knows the cost of this life. They've left behind families, missed birthdays, forfeited comfort and freedom for months. And because each sailor is making that sacrifice, they extend grace to one another. Tempers are held, tensions are diffused. When someone struggles, the crew steps in, not with judgment, but with presence. And when things get tough, and they always do, it's the small gestures that keep people going. A shared joke, a quiet nod in the passageway, a cup of hot coffee left for the next watch standard. These are the currency of submarine life, the invisible threads that keep 130 individuals functioning as one. Because down here, beneath the pressure, beneath the noise, beneath the sea, what keeps the boat running is more than machinery. It's the brotherhood built in silence. Despite the layers of technology, planning, and discipline that define submarine life, one truth remains. Things can and do go wrong. And when they do, the stakes are immediate and absolute. There are no lifeboats, no windows to crawl through, no helicopters to call. The only people who can save the crew are the crew themselves. History offers stark reminders. One of the most infamous cases occurred on April 14, 1945, aboard the German U-boat U-1206. Just weeks before the end of World War II, the captain, unfamiliar with the boat's newly installed high-pressure toilet, attempted to operate it without the proper technician. The result, a flood of seawater mixed with sewage, reached the submarine's batteries, creating toxic chlorine gas forced to surface in enemy waters. The crew was immediately spotted and attacked by British aircraft. One sailor died and the rest were captured. The submarine was scuttled, all because of a toilet. It sounds absurd until you understand how precise and interdependent every system on a submarine truly is. Air, water, power, waste, and propulsion are all part of a delicately balanced ecosystem. A single valve failure or incorrect button push can trigger a chain reaction. Some mariners live with that knowledge every day, and rather than paralyze them, it stills them. Drills are frequent and realistic. Without warning, the alarm sounds. Flooding in the engine room, fire in the galley, radiation alert near the reactor. Everyone leaps into action. Compartment doors are sealed, masks are done, systems are rerouted. The goal isn't just survival, it's muscle memory. When a real emergency hits, there's no room for panic, only procedure. Sometimes it's not a dramatic moment that tests the crew, but a slow deterioration. A subtle drop in oxygen levels, a pressure reading just slightly off, a vibration in the hull that shouldn't be there. The best submariners are those who notice these whispers before they become screams, who act not out of fear but out of trained instinct. And yes, there are heroes. Sailors who climb into narrow shafts to stop a leak by hand. Cooks who abandon a meal to fight a fire. Technicians who repair a vital circuit board using only improvised tools. They may not make headlines, but within the boat, their stories are told and remembered. When the systems work, the submariners vanish from the world, completing their missions in perfect silence. But when systems fail, they rely not on luck, but on preparation, skill, and each other. Down here, bravery isn't about medals. It's about staying calm while trapped hundreds of feet underwater, solving the unsolvable because there is no alternative. It's about knowing that if the worst happens, you are never alone, because everyone on board trained for this, everyone understands the weight, and everyone is ready. The submarine is the ultimate test of human endurance, not in brute strength, but in sustained composure, discipline, and psychological resilience. Day after day, week after week, the crew functions like clockwork, but beneath that routine lies a silent contest with the limits of the mind and body. Take HMS Vengeance, 201 days submerged beneath the North Atlantic. That's not just a military achievement, it's a human one. No sunlight, no fresh air, no weather. No true day or night. The rhythms of nature are erased and replaced with artificial lighting, rotating watch schedules, and mechanical sounds. Time stretches, bends, and eventually blurs. The psychological toll is real. Without visual or temporal cues, the brain begins to drift. Submariners report vivid dreams, difficulty distinguishing one day from the next, and strange sensations of weightlessness or detachment. Even the body clock begins to shift. Melatonin production, tied to sunlight, slows down. Sleep becomes harder. Fatigue creeps in. That's why submarines now operate on a 24-hour cycle with 8-hour shifts to give the body something to anchor itself to. But endurance isn't just about sleeping and waking. It's about managing mood, emotion, and stress in a place with no escape. Arguments can't be walked away from. Grief and loneliness have no outlet. Every emotion must be processed while staying on mission, surrounded by steel and silence. To cope, submarines rely on structure and ritual, weekly movie nights, holiday dinners, occasional steel beach picnics where sailors gather in the engine room and pretend it's a sunny afternoon. There are even talent shows, board game tournaments, and gym competitions, all designed to carve out normalcy where none should exist. And when nothing else helps, humor becomes the final weapon. Submariners are masters of dark, absurd comedy. Jokes become lifelines. Pranks become morale boosters. Laughter, shared, quiet, and often necessary, is the pressure valve that keeps the boat emotionally balanced. Still, records like 201 days underwater aren't about pushing the crew to breaking, they're about proving what's possible. About showing that with the right training, systems, and solidarity, human beings can thrive in the most unnatural conditions imaginable. And when the submarine finally surfaces, when the hatch opens and sunlight spills in for the first time in months, there is no fanfare, just the quiet awe of men and women who did something extraordinary, who didn't just survive the deep, but mastered it. Submarine life isn't glamorous. It's not filmed in dramatic camera sweeps or broadcast live on television. There are no parades for missions that no one can talk about, no headlines for deployments that never make the news. And that's exactly how it's meant to be. This is the silent service, a branch of the military defined by its invisibility, its anonymity, and its unshakable sense of duty. Submariners don't serve for glory. They serve because someone must carry the quiet burden of deterrence, of surveillance, of presence beneath the waves. Someone must be ready to strike or to disappear, or to protect without ever being seen. What makes these sailors extraordinary isn't that they live in a machine. It's that they bring humanity into the most inhuman environment imaginable. They sleep, eat, joke, worry, celebrate, grieve, and endure. In a world of pressure and steel, they do it not in isolation, but in unity, not in despair, but in discipline, and not for fame, but for one another. They emerge pale and lean, blinking into sunlight, quietly stepping back into a world that never noticed they were gone. But ask any of them and they'll tell you they carry the ocean with them. The silence, the pressure, the lessons, the knowledge that they went where few can go and did what fewer still could endure. And then after a few weeks on land, when the world gets too loud and the ground too solid, they volunteer to do it again. Because the silent service doesn't just hide in the depths, it watches, it waits, and it endures.